and some of the different plants, and it was very informative going through the conservation garden, and so it's greatly appreciated, Stu. Thank you so much. We'll go right into our reports. We have Beaver City first. We have Robin Bradshaw and Jason Brown and Darren Robinson, and Russ is going to present it for us. We welcome you here.
By a private irrigation company. Diversion structure is 50 years old, and the concrete has deteriorated and has developed leaks. And on the map here, you can see the location of the Mammoth Canal on the hillside above the town
Russ,
there.
just a second. They're trying to get that map so we can see it on the screens. Is it on anywhere other than your computer? Is
Yeah.
it?
Okay, and again, the diversion structure is 50 years old, and the concrete is deteriorated and it has developed leaks. The sponsor has made several temporary patches, but the structure needs to be replaced. And again, on the map here, you can see the Mammoth Canal going above the hillside above the town. Their head pond, 15-acre-foot head pond, is also located there, and several diversions are located at that area. 2 irrigation companies, the city, and hydropower plant, city-owned hydropower plant. Additionally, overflow from the Mammoth Canal has created a gorge downslope of the diversion structure and head pond, which is growing bigger as the gorge head cuts towards the canal. If either the gorge collapses from the head cutting or the diversion structure fails, the Mammoth Canal and the head pond would be in danger of failing. If that happened, several houses, a trailer park, a golf course, and a hydropower plant could be flooded and possibly destroyed. Okay, here's some pictures of, here's their old diversion structure. This is on the west side of the canal, south side of the canal. Uphill of it, there's their pond. Hill there. Here's the deteriorated concrete. Pictures of the concrete, the screens, the gates, everything's pretty rusty. Okay, this is the Mammoth Canal looking upstream. Again, it carries about 100 CFS. It's a pretty large canal. Here's the overflow coming out of here, out of the Mammoth Canal in the spring during spring runoff. Large volume. Okay, this is looking up towards the overflow. You can see the cutting of the canal on the down cutting into the canyon there. You've got a overflow from a sluice on the west side there, on the left side of the picture. On the right side where you see that truck, you see that's right next to the pond. Okay, they've tried to patch it with concrete rubble slabs and things, and you can see they've dumped a lot of it here to stop it from head cutting. Tucked into the side of the hill. Again, the truck right there is parked right next to the fence. This would be the west side of that gorge. Continues to slough off. This is just downhill, showing that they've dumped a lot of rubble down there trying to contain it. Okay, this will just give you an idea of how much water is coming down that gorge. And here's a 180 degree video of what's at that site. And I've been told my documentary style is reminiscent of Rod Decker. So,
Right here we see the hillside. It's full, bluffed off on the bottom. There's the road. There's where our truck is, and here's the pond right here, about 25 feet away.
okay. This is my first attempt at a documentary. So. Okay, and here's the present plan of what they would like to do. They would like to put in a sluice structure. There's already a sluice structure on the Harris Willis Irrigation Company has. It's still up in the air as to where this sluice is exactly going to go. They're going to put a dissipation structure down below. They're going to pipe all that overflow in a 5-foot, 63-inch diameter pipe coming right down to this diversion structure. Got a lot of pipes and other irrigation companies, things they need to deal with, and going to put in a new diversion structure, trash. Sponsor is requesting financial assistance from the board to replace its diversion structure with an improved diversion system, a sluicing structure, and improvements to stabilize and fill in the gorge from further damage. Sponsor-owned hydropower plant, Penstock, will also be incorporated in the new system. Financial feasibility for the sponsor proved they're currently over the board's affordability guideline, and no water savings or financial benefits are expected from the project. The proposed improvements will make the canal and head pond safer from potential failures. Recommended cost sharing and repayment agreement are as follows. The board providing $315,000 or 85% of the funding, and sponsor would provide $55,000 or 15%. Board authorizes the project. It is suggested it be purchased at 0% interest for 15 years with annual payments of approximately $23,000, including reserves.
Thank you, Russ. Robin or Jason or Darren, anything any of you want to say?
I would like to comment. My name is Robin Bradshaw. I'm a member of the Beaver City Council. I've been before this Board of Water Resources before, and I want to compliment you and thank you for the help that you've given Beaver City. When I was on the committee before, when I was on the city council before, we came and got money from you to help us put in the pressurized irrigation system for Beaver City, which has been a wonderful project. And we couldn't have done it without you, and I thank your help for that. And there's been other projects that this board has helped Beaver City with. And again, I want to thank you for your help and your consideration on this project.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I just want to thank you. My name is Jason Brown. I'm the city manager. Thank you, Jim, for coming down and looking on site with us, and Russell taking the time to look at my concern, the safety issues that we have with that deteriorated aging structure. Look forward to partnering with Water Resources to make that a safer site.
Darren?
The only thing I would add, Jim, is the schedule on this is fairly aggressive. The city would like to have construction begin in October. We have a lot of work to do. course, on our end and the city's end, rights of ways and going through. Russell's quick attention to putting this together. Technically, we have all of the right pieces there to make this a successful project. The position, as Russell mentioned, may shift on that sluice structure if we can work with the property owner, with Rocky Mountain Power, to position on the north side of the canal. That's one change that we prefer to make, but at this point, we know we have the property owner will work with us where we show it right now, so that's why details we need to work out, but we're excited to jump in and get started.
Thank you.
One more comment. The reason why we'd like to start on this project is follows when the water season's over. We won't be affecting irrigation systems, and it's low time for water in the creek, so it don't even make sense to try and get that done this fall.
Yeah.
Any questions from the
Mr.
board?
Chairman, are you suggesting we fund this today also, or?
No, we're only authorizing it today, and we're just getting ready to get them committed for funds at the August meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
How are we going to incorporate the penstock into this?
Okay. So currently, the penstock and the irrigation system, the PI system, are served off of the same diversion, same pipelines that are manifolded together. So what that does is it affects the hydraulics for the penstock and the hydropower plant. What we'll do is we'll have a separate line coming off the sluice structure for the penstock, and we'll tie that 36-inch diameter line in downstream of where the T is to the irrigation pond. There's a large table screen there. It's right in the center of the page. So we'll tie in that 36-inch penstock into the combined 21 and 24-inch pipes at that point, below the pond. Mm-hmm. Right. So we completely separate those two hydraulically, and except they share the same diversion still and same sluice structure, better sluice structure. So both, it's a very efficient project in that both benefit by the sluicing component of the project.
Excuse me. Is that the overflow out of your pond, or is that the overflow out of the canal?
Okay. In the spring of the year, there's a lot of trash that comes down the Mammoth Canal, beaver clippings and willows and floating debris. To avoid some of the plugging, they like to be able to overflow and basically trim off the top water and send it back down the ditch. So that overflow, it comes off the Mammoth Canal. It also serves as an overflow to the Mammoth sluice structure there. They also skim off the top of there and run it back into that same overflow. There's also on the project a valve to allow the city to be able to drain their pond independent of draining it through the system. So that's another kind of overflow or outlet component. Did I answer your question?
The overflow goes right back into the Beaver River.
Correct.
Yeah. We won't. We want to be able to move that debris right on through, and that's,
Right, go down the pipe and.
yes. And we'll have tentatively we have a large, kind of a very coarse grizzly screen at the opening of that pipe that will set low with an overflow over the top of that grizzly if it were to become completely plugged and if there's a flood event upstream. That's the other thing I should have mentioned. The overflow also serves as a kind of a pressure relief valve, because there are a few side drainages that empty into the Mammoth Canal, and if there's uncontrolled water in the system, worst case scenario, if the gates are closed and we have a flood, that overflow acts as an outlet or pressure relief valve at the end of or at this major bifurcation of the canal.
By the Beaver City.
It's a combined ownership there. So yeah, it's currently, it serves everyone. They all tend to just share in the keeping an eye on it and maintaining that portion of the canal. Questions?
Gavin, did you have a question?
I had a question relating to the come up because of the financial feasibility, affordability. It shows that you have a $6.50 a month secondary charge per resident. Is the secondary system metered, or is that just?
No, it is not.
When it was designed and installed, each connection was only allowed a certain size of pipe to their property. So I guess the restriction on how much water they can use is through the diameter of pipe that's ran to their property.
Any other questions?
Is there any intent to meter in the future on those connections?
We haven't talked about that right now, but where I've been on the Harris-Willis irrigation system, and it is a pressurized irrigation system that does serve farmers. You know, when we put that in 1983, we were a bunch of farmers. Now that all the subdivisions can come in and everybody's bought one share of water, I can see where that's going to be a necessity in the future to put meters on people, to limit them to the amount of water, not only on the Harris-Willis irrigation system, but also on Beaver City.
Else? Have a motion?
Yes. I move that the board authorize this project with a payback period of 15 years, and it be purchased at 0% interest with annual payments of approximately $23,000, which includes reserves.
Second that. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks to the board very much. It will help Beaver City tremendously. Thank you.
Robin and Max Slim still kicking around down there?
Now, you know what? Just as I was walking up here, I got a message on the phone from Max Slim. So,
He's doing better than.
yes, he had some health
hanging in
problems
there.
about 15 months ago, but he's doing really good now. So, do you know Max? I'll tell him you said hello. All right. Thank you.
Didn't service any lawn and garden.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay, we appreciate you here. We have from Benson, Rick Reese and Ross Olson, Eric Franson. Russ, you're still on the docket.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Benson Irrigation Company delivers irrigation water from the Logan River, private wells, and occasionally from the Logan City wells to about 50 shareholders irrigating 2,000 acres. About 1,200 acres of alfalfa and corn are sprinkle irrigated, and 800 acres of pasture hay and grasses are flood irrigated. About 9 miles of the system are earthen canals, and about 30% of the sponsor's canal water is lost due to seepage and evaporation. The sponsor is requesting financial assistance from the board to install about 9 miles of pipeline, a central pumping station, and appurtenances. And here's a picture, a map of their existing pipelines and their proposed pipeline network and pumping station up at the head. Here's a few pictures, their existing ditches, just large canals, a leak a lot of weeds.
Is that taken yesterday?
Day before.
Charles just sad looking
We
at
moved
this.
the improvement.
And here's where their diversion splits between the two canals that the system feeds, and someone's holding a donut there in the picture.
What is going on?
Better Charles.
Benson irrigation folks were really good to us, you know.
Yeah, they brought us donuts. Another picture of one of their ditches. Their laterals, and a lot of growth, a lot of weeds, earthen. And this is just to show you the whole crowd up there in Benson are serious dairy farmers. One of the guys has one of these carousels that this cow in the white here, he steps on, the cows all line up to get on their place on the carousel. The carousel rotates and milks them as they go around, and then when they finish up the other end, the cows just step off. And apparently these cost about $1.5 million. So there's some serious dairy farmers up here, and they sell all their milk to Gosner cheese. Okay, the project will reduce seepage and leakage losses by as much as 2,420 acre feet. It'll also reduce pumping costs significantly. This saved water applied to increased crop productions would increase net farm incomes by approximately $221,600. Additionally, the electrical cost to pump water will be reduced by approximately $9,100, yielding a total net benefit of $230,700 from project construction. As the board's cost share is 53.2%, that percentage of benefits could be used as repayment for board assistance, amounting to approximately $122,700 available for repayment. The economic analysis of the project showed a benefit cost ratio of 1.23. Okay, the recommended cost sharing and repayment agreement are the Board of Water Resources providing $1,424,000. The Water Smart grant, which hasn't been awarded yet, of $1 million, and the sponsor providing $251,000. Board authorizes the project. As suggested, the board provide 53.2% of the project cost, up to $1,424,000, with the project to be purchased at 1% interest over approximately 13 years, with annual payments of $122,700 for the first 12 years, and the balance being paid the final year. Staff's report.
Thank you. Any comments from any of you there?
I guess I very much appreciate being here. I've never been to one of these, and I appreciate what you guys do and stuff. We share our concerns and interests, and we are in a particular situation where at the end of a ditch, as Logan River has two major entities that pull water off of them. The upper one that you guys are familiar with is the Cache Highline Canal. We are the part of the Crockett Avenue, which is the lower part, and we are at the end, and we are the major, on that system, we are the major crop growers of that system. But we also have a failing system. We are few in number. We only have 50 shareholders. And that being said, and I'm not crying something you've already heard, but we just wonder if we could come up with some way of softening the payment with longer years, or maybe softening it for 12 years and then extending it because of our situation. Besides meeting your requirements, which I appreciate, we also have to spend a lot of money to change our adaptation to adapt to or change our process to adapt.
On-farm equipment.
on-farm equipment to adapt to the pressurization. And that's one of the biggest concerns in our company. I know everybody, I've been involved with this company for my whole life. I know them, and I know the hardship, and I know a lot of concerns. We are in a place where we can't do nothing, but yet I can't accept something, and I don't want to go in agreement with any of you guys if we're set up to fail. I'd like to see that it's a win-win with everybody. But anyway, I'm not the brain, so.
What are you suggesting? 20 years?
If you want.
As I talked with Rick, I think giving some time for those 800 acres and others to spend some money on on-farm improvements, so maybe a lower payment for the first 5 to 10 years as they convert and spend that money, and then the balance later. They have talked in meetings, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. They have about 1 share to service 2 acres in their company, and so they were talking that they feel like right now, with all the improvements that need to be made, they could handle about $60 a share for this short term, and then maybe a little bit more once everybody's up and running. So I don't know what that comes to as far as that's concerned, but that's kind of where they were hoping to land with this project.
$60. 60.
They have,
And we was at 15, and I mean, we're a little bit out in Benson, and to be nice to my neighbors, we're a little bit old school. And we went from 15 to 25, and I didn't dare walk outside for a while. It was challenging. As we talked to our neighbors and we started reviewing, and you know, out of respect to you guys, I went out and I talked to a lot of companies, and they instilled in me the value of moving forward in this direction. I've seen it, the testimonies have come to me. I'm still working in my company for them to feel this. And everybody that tells me says, once you are in it and you give it some time, you will love it. But, so that being said.
they increased their assessments to $60 because they were wanting to do something. And part of the initial plan was maybe line some of the canals or non-pressurized pipe, and so they were trying to increase those assessments to that $60 mark to try and get some money in the bank to do something. And so those assessments are at 60, and so that would just roll over from where they're at, and that money that's being collected will go to pay for a pressurized system as opposed to other maybe short-term fixes that don't really address all of the issues.
Tell us a figure. Payment.
So $60 a share, which would be $60,000 a year for 10 years. And then the remaining balance spread out over another 10 or 15. Whatever, I don't know what the math comes out to be, what's left.
Joel,
The longer the better.
Work that out for us and give us an idea.
Want me to get my calculator out?
Yeah. 60.
Yeah, would have
First
helped to
10 years.
had a little lead time on this.
Yeah.
Would it be best if we actually went outside, did some discussion and talking, let the other project be heard, and then we come back in with some specific numbers? I'm just asking. It's the other piece to the puzzle is the Water Smart grant.
Yeah.
We haven't heard on that
Yeah.
either. That
Yeah.
is supposed to have come a month ago, and then it's supposed to come today. is the last we heard. And that is a big piece of the equation. Without that Water Smart grant, I'm not sure that Benson can afford to move forward either, so. That makes sense.
If I make a comment, is, I told you we are pretty much all agriculture, that's 50 shareholders. Our options, and we have studied different options, but at the time, this is the most beneficial, most water conservancy. And above us, Crockett Avenue is in the process right now of improving their system into a pressurized system. So our situation needs to match with what the future above us is gonna be. And that is being relied on heavily on secondary water, and that's not a resource we have right now in Benson. But like Eric said, if we could get time to put some infrastructure or some equipment involved to match the pressurization, it would just help us out.
Joe, would you and Russ's recommendation be that to give you a chance to work with them on that and have them come back in August, or?
Where this is an authorization, the board could authorize the report as written, then they'll find out if they get the Water Smart grant. When they come back for committal, we at that point. It's agreeable to them, but at this point where it is just an authorization.
And we could also do a flat payment today. For like, recommend 20, 25 years. But if you want a special repayment with lower payments for the first 10 years and then something else.
I think one of the things I'd like to comment on is this repayment is, on the video, you saw the carousel dairy. I think in our area, we maybe have 6 large family dairies. The majority of the people that we have on the Benson irrigation are people that have gotten 20, 30, 40 acres maybe from family farms. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. They're keeping these farms in their family. They're trying to build a retirement or whatever. A lot of them have struggled. I know some of the guys that have some of the grasslands, raising their beef up. One gentleman there has gone from maybe 20 head of cows. He's working 2 other jobs. His 3 boys are working 2 jobs. They've built it up to 80 acres. And now we're going to a pressurized system where he's been using flood. He realizes the amount of water that's actually wasted. Come down these open ditches. Leakage goes out onto that ground, the water that's wasted, the evaporation. But what he has actually said back is, I can contain that, put it into a captured pipe, put it into different areas to where we can put application to the ground, and I'm gonna get a better growth on that, rather than just flood irrigate it, take the whole ditch for 2 weeks and try to flood that ground. The repayment for him, he's got to come in and put in different applications, feasibilities to spread that water. So this is what we're kind of looking at. The majority of our people that are on the, in the irrigation company aren't the big-time dairy farmers. They're your small Utah family farms. There is going to be quite a bit of financial adjustment that they're going to have to make in time to get this in. Plus, we've got the main system, as I was saying, that's failing us. We're losing a lot.
I think approving it as written would be fine if we can come back at committal and make more detailed decisions at that point. Once the Water
Well, you'll
Smart's
know whether you
approved,
have a Water Smart grant by then too.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just had a thought. I mean, that is an option to go ahead and authorize as is written. I'm just wondering about the essence of what they're asking for, and if that is significant enough that, you know, staff may want to spend some time working with them, looking at how we may have handled another situation in the past that would mirror what they're doing, and then have them come back for authorization in August. Question for you. Could do that. I'm wondering if the changes would be significant, and by the time it comes back for committal, you might be
If the
thing that you
We
might
don't
not
have
be
anything to
agreeable
do in August anyway, so let's do that.
So,
Well, I don't know, would you guys be okay if we authorize it today and we come back in August?
I think it probably doesn't affect the situation one way or the other. So
Water Smart grant depend on you having other.
Already got a committal letter.
I think the decision's been made on the Bureau's side. Whether that is, I mean, like I said, last we heard today was going to be the announcement day, but who knows, it might be extended another couple weeks. But, from that perspective, if the terms were extended long enough, I think a flat payment for the entire term would be acceptable, as long as that annual payment, was reasonable. So asking for that reduced payment up front may not be necessary if the entire term was extended long enough too. So it might not be that much different in the end, as long as the term is extended. But I really don't think it matters either way.
and just one more thought, you could insert one more step in there, and you could authorize today, reauthorize if things change considerably and you feel like you'd like an action before it gets to committal.
And we also have some other information here. If the board wanted to do a flat payment, if the irrigation company's okay with that, at 1% interest for 20-year payments, you would have repayments of about $79,000. And at 25 years, at 1% interest, you'd have payments of approximately $65,000. So at 15 years, it would be $103,000.
20-year one was what, Russ? 79.
79,000, approximately 79,000.
5,000. What is your thoughts on those?
65 sounds better, I'm certain.
I very much don't like to be in debt, and if possible, I would like to get out from under it. But I'm very sensitive to make sure that it's a win-win from the get-go with everybody. And then as we pursue, I'd like to think that we could be aggressive on our part to get out from under this responsibility. But in farming, there's a lot of ups and downs, so I can't promise a lot of things too.
And that's one of the things we take into consideration is if we can, we'd rather give you a little more time than have you have to come back and readjust. So we've always kind of felt along those lines. What is the board thinking?
I would recommend we go ahead and authorize it based on the 25. And that gives them a chance to talk to their stockholders and give them.
Sounds great to us, I believe.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions or comments?
I know it's tough up there because 47 years ago, I was milking cows paying up there in Benson.
Well, I'm just across the river from there.
Any other comments?
Right, I'd make a motion that,
Authorize?
no.
Authorize.
Authorize.
You want to do? Okay, 25 years?
5 years with annual payment.
Actually,
I'll second that motion.
Oh, the motion should be over approximately 25 years with payments of exactly $65,000. Yeah.
We have any other questions, or can we call for approval of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank
We'll
you.
go with that and have you
Sorry
work
for
with
that
them and see if it'll
curveball.
work.
We've had a request that the microphones all be brought towards your faces and that you use them. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Silver Creek Reservoir. And we have Thane or Fred, or both?
My nickname's Fred. Everybody calls me Fred.
All right.
My real name's Thane.
All right, we like either one, so we'll go with what you want then.
Okay, Fred's fine, thank you.
And Lane Pierce, right? And we have Jacqueline that'll be presenting.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Silver Creek Reservoir Company is requesting financial assistance to construct a 3-mile, 30-inch HDPE pipeline starting at the base of Wales Reservoir, and it is located near Moroni in Sanpete County. The pipeline is depicted in the dotted red line on the figure. The sponsor delivers irrigation water to 17 shareholders to irrigate 650 acres of alfalfa and grass hay via the Silver Creek Canal. The sponsor diverts water from Silver Creek into Wells Reservoir from October to April, and the water is used from April to October. They have water rights to store and use 1,450 acre-feet annually of water. Portions of the canal, so this is a picture of the Wells Reservoir. Portions of the canal were lined in 1950s, but they're now completely deteriorated, and the canal loses a substantial amount of water. It is estimated that the first 3 miles of the canal loses approximately 40% of the water. And these are just some other images of the canal. The proposed project will conserve about 600 acre-feet of water annually that is currently lost to seepage. Other benefits include reduced maintenance costs, increased efficiency of the canal, and reduced public safety hazards. It is recommended that the cost sharing for the estimated $1,990,000 project is financial assistance of 45.9% or $500,000 from the board. The sponsor applied for a Water Smart grant, but those haven't been, the Bureau of Reclamation hasn't released the list of recipients for this year, so we're still waiting to hear on the results of that. And the sponsor share would be 8.2% or $90,000. If the board authorizes the project, it is suggested that it be purchased at 0% interest over approximately 25 years with annual payments of $20,000. Thank you. That is staff's report.
Thank you. Fred or Lane?
Well, I guess first we better compliment the board, right? Because everyone, the other two people have, but no, we do appreciate you guys and all you do. We understand a couple questions have come up, and we just like to, answer those first. I guess one question was the size of the pipe being 30 inches seems large. The main reason for that is the slope that we have out there. As you can see in some of the pictures, the water appears to be standing still, which is, it's very flat, and we did the engineering, and with the minimal slope, it's basically gonna be an open channel flow situation. So therefore, you have to get as you guys know, the flatter the slope, the larger pipe to move the amount of water that Fred's indicated that the users would need. So that's why the pipe is so large, because of the slope. The other, I guess, couple other things that came up were maybe with putting our pipe adjacent to the creek, or to the ditch, I guess is a better word for it, there is a potential for the pipe to float, right? It's a big diameter pipe. It may float. That's a very reasonable concern. And when we get into the more engineering part, we'll have to see if it's going to float and maybe put some anchors and stuff like that. And I think, I think that's a good engineering thought, and that we'll have to make sure we do when we construct the pipe. And then lastly, I guess the easement, what kind of easement we had, and then talking to Fred, it was a prescriptive easement, is that right?
Yeah.
It's more of than a written, recorded easement.
And with the pipe floating too, us putting the water in the pipe, there won't be as much seepage. So, there won't be as much loss going in that ditch. So, it probably won't be an issue, but.
650 acre feet of lost water, is that all from your right, or is that the other canal company too?
Basically, they lose, right now from the reservoir to where they stop taking the water, in that distance, we lose 1 second feet. So they lose a third of that. We lose. And from the point where they stop taking their water, and then it's just the reservoir water, from the highway to my place where we measured it again, we're losing another 2 second feet. So that's all our loss. So the majority of the loss is ours, yes. Very minimal. They only have 2 second feet roughly of water that's in the canal. So their portion of the ditch loss is very little.
Question on the two systems. Your pipe will not be in this ditch. It will be right next to it. And you're going to be running parallel flows all along. You can't combine the two entities.
Well, we have a lot of issues. Our main problem is measuring the water. In 1956, they done an agreement. The two ditch companies done an agreement, and the irrigation company, Silver Creek Irrigation Company, is supposed to stand reservoir loss as well as the ditch loss. And I haven't been able to get them to stand any reservoir loss. I actually did this year get them to stand some ditch loss. It's really tough, and I feel like as far as both parties go, if we can put ours in a pipe and they can have the ditch, then a lot of the issues that we have, and there's a lot of them, will come to an end. And because we can measure the water out of the desilting structure to them very easily. But the way they just take it out of the ditch now, it's really tough. So, everybody feels like that they're getting the bad end of the deal. So it will help with a lot of animosity.
Sure, I have experience with two ditches and one ditch.
It's horrible
situation. So yeah,
Well, you caused the problem.
I feel for you. Yeah.
How much flow will be in this pipe?
We want to put 9 second feet in it.
9 second feet?
Yep. That's what when they done the original agreement in 1956, they done a 15 second foot ditch. That's what the capacity of the ditch was then. That's so Silver Creek could have a third, the irrigation could have a third, the reservoir company would have 2/3. So we're kind of still basing that on that number.
Realizing that you're going to run out of water at that flow rate within a month or 6 weeks, whatever.
Right now, we are running 10 out of the reservoir. That gives Silver Creek their share, and that gets us, roughly 7 second feet going to us. Now, I realize that once it's in a pipe, we're gonna get that full 7 second feet where we've only been getting 4 in the past. So, in my eyes, we're only gonna have to put 5 second feet in the pipe, but a lot of it's up in the air right now, because this is new ground for us. We've never, we've done it the old fashioned way, just like everybody else has. So, the main reason it is because of the original agreements. The 15 second foot ditch is what it was, and concerns with our shareholders that they want to make sure that the water will get to us.
So you only have a right to 1,480 acre feet of
yeah.
water. And if you run 9 second feet or 7 second feet, you only got about 30 days worth of water.
And, it's part of the problem is we never fill the reservoir, so we run a lot less water because of the amount of water we have. There's only, in Sanpete County, there's very little storage. We're one of, and I'm not sure how many, but very few, 3 maybe, storages. So flows are up and down, and we got to adjust for what we have in our pond.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize this project purchased at a 0% interest rate, with the board providing 45.9% of the total cost and the board's share being $500,000. That it be purchased at 0% interest over approximately 25 years with an annual payment of $20,000.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
We greatly appreciate everything you do. You helped tremendously.
And thank you. And we have a couple of slips that were filled out here from Sunrise Engineering. Just that you're here visiting, we appreciate you. We have Dustin and Douglas. Kind of hid behind a pillar from me, but welcome here. All right, Joel, Lake Powell project.
The license application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was submitted on May 2nd. There was a supplemental filing with some additional information that needed to be submitted on June 1st. The remaining work now will be to complete the Class 3 Cultural Resources Report, which we've known all along was going to take longer than the rest of the license application, to work with the State Historic Preservation Offices and the BLM to get the cultural resources details, and that should be finalized in early 2017, and we would expect at that point, with FERC having all the information, that they would then give their notice to proceed with the environmental process, begin the NEPA process, and then at that point we would just see how long it takes for FERC to move the project through that process. And so we're at a pretty good point where we've submitted that application, and now we'll see how this process goes. Any questions from the board?
No questions? Great job.
Thank you,
Joel. Thank you. And we have a water conservation update, Eric. Better say Eric Klotz, hadn't I?
So many Erics around here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Appreciate having the opportunity to give this presentation to you. I was asked by Eric Millis to give a presentation on the really important project that the Conservation and Education section is currently working on, and that is to gather water use data that we utilize in our planning efforts, as well as how we determine per capita use to determine if conservation is either raising or lowering the per capita use in the state. I gave this presentation back in the Water Users Workshop. I've shortened it, so I apologize if any of you were there and are going to hear this again, but it was given by me and James Greer from Water Rights. Let me go through. So the program is a cooperative effort between the USGS, the Division of Water Rights, our agency, Water Resources, as well as drinking water. And the purpose is to collect and compile water supply withdrawal and diversion data, as well as customer level water use data from the public water suppliers, industrial and groundwater management plan users throughout Utah. So Water Rights is the lead agency on this effort. They send out a form every year called the Water Use Data Form. It's sent to approximately 450 water systems. These are systems that are deliver culinary water. These are not to irrigation companies, although there are a few irrigation companies that actually deliver culinary water within the state. But this program is designed to collect culinary water deliveries and customer level use. So this is the law that that Water Rights has, as a statute really, that Water Rights has, that they has given them the authority to collect this data. And you can read there, it requires every system using water from any river system, when requested by the state engineer, shall give this data to them. So every year, going the wrong way, they send out this form, and the participation of the users that receive this form is mandatory if, one, it's required by an order from the state engineer, a condition of the water right approval requested by the state engineer. And that's really why and how every year, that third one, why Water Rights, why everybody who receives this form has to submit the data. The statute states if they request it, you have to supply the data. To obtain state loans through our program, as well as drinking water. And then, again, the statute, the bottom one basically just reiterates that the statute basically is suggesting that this is mandatory for every system. So how is the water data used every year? It's used by the USGS. They do studies utilizing this data. We in Water Resources use it for our planning programs and our future planning efforts to determine future water needs. Water Rights uses it for water management policy development. It's used for state financial programs. It's an assessment of the water supply and water use. It's used by Water Rights for their proof processing. And then this last one, we wanted to start to tell some of the systems who believe this is a burdensome process, the form, if filled out properly, can really be a value to systems to evaluate the efficiency of their own systems. And we're trying to encourage that this last year to try to hope that systems will send the form in because it can help them as well. So the data is collected every year by Water Rights, sends out this form. It's mailed out in January. It's due by March 1st. And then after that date, a postcard reminder is mailed out. And then about June 1st, a late letter is mailed out. So to date, and then in addition, there's detailed instructions mailed out. And there was a section that drinking water asks a lot of revenues and expenditures. That's since been taken off of the form. And I'll talk about that in a minute, how we improve the form after the legislative audit. But to date, the form was sent out in January to about 450 systems. About 80% have submitted the data by, well, not by March 1st, by June 1st. And so 20% have not submitted anything. And out of the 80% that have submitted, about half of them need to be contacted. And Water Rights and our agency, as well as many others, are in the process right now of trying to contact those entities to get the data compiled. So thought somebody said something. So the legislative audit, one of the big parts of that audit was an overall analysis of this entire process of sending out the form by Water Rights, us coming in on a periodic basis every 5 years trying to get better data. All of that was looked at by the audit, and the recommendations that the audit suggested were that improvements which should be made for the accountability, education and accuracy, efficiency and frequency. This next slide shows this a little better. So accountability, the idea was this program has to increase that more providers provide this data. After the audit, the legislative Executive Water Task Force formed a subcommittee, and that subcommittee included representatives from our agency, Water Rights, Drinking Water. Mike Starler of the department was on that subcommittee. Rural Water Users Association was representative, League of Cities and Towns, as well as representatives from many of the water systems, both large and small. And that committee was put together, and we started looking at what we could do with these recommendations by the audit, how we could improve this whole process. On the accountability side, the three things listed there over to the right were what this committee decided to look into. One was, let's require the providers who fill out the form to sign it. If they're a PE, stamp it. If they're an operator, a system operator, sign it with their certified operator number on there. Maybe that would give them more incentive to provide accurate data. There was also thoughts to modify the statute. And then Water Rights even suggested that maybe we could revoke the forfeiture exemption for water suppliers who fail to report accurately. What was decided at that point with the subcommittee, that we would go with number one, that we would require data providers to sign the data form. As far as accuracy and education, the subcommittee suggested that Water Rights needs to hire additional staff that would be regionally located to try to basically meet with every system in their region and try to get them to fill out the form more accurately. We wanted to streamline the process. One of the big issues right now is our database that we have does not talk to Water Rights database, does not talk to Drinking Water's database. On the efficiency side, the subcommittee said we need to tie those databases all together. And then the frequency was in question. We go in every 5 years to really analyze the data that Water Rights collects annually, and the audit suggested that that be done on an annual basis as well, that our agency should basically look at the data every year rather than every 5 years. So from those recommendations, a couple of legislative actions were taken. House Bill 305, which dealt with the Water Rights and Resources Amendments, It deals with the accuracy of the water use data. It requires now the recommendation that the subcommittee suggested of having either a professional engineer or a certified operator sign the form was now put into statute. That will start on basically July 1st. That is now in statute that those systems have to sign those forms. The other thing it did was it provided money for 2 FTEs, both in water rights. One will be an IT person that will job will be to tie those databases together that I talked about earlier. The other was to have one person located probably in the center of the state, and that person would go around helping the systems try to fill out that form. They had asked originally for 5 FTEs. The legislature appropriated 2.
Well, just a clarification, Eric. They actually funded 1 FTE and then some one-time money for a DTS employee at 3/4 of a year. That DTS employee not only will tie all those databases together, will work on a 1040 EZ type of form for submittal for these municipalities or these culinary water providers to submit the information. It will also do some collection on the fly and calculation to look at if it compares to how well to last year's data, and provide some immediate feedback to the provider that's submitting the water use numbers. So,
any questions? The other was this resolution that basically the legislature passed a resolution encouraging universal metering of water system, which did not mandate it, but it encouraged water systems to implement universal metering. What this was really intended, one of the issues on that the audit found was almost every system that delivers secondary water use. So remember I mentioned that the form is sent out to all the culinary providers. Within just about every culinary provider boundary, there is secondary use, which is what we call part of municipal industrial use. That is very rarely metered at the customer level, so we estimate it every 5 years, and that estimate was brought into question by the audit on how accurate that is. We feel it's the best available data, but there's no question if you metered at the customer level, that would be much more accurate. And so this resolution is a step in that direction of trying to get really secondary systems to eventually be metered at the customer level. So the other thing that happened that the subcommittee worked on was this is what the form looks like prior to we basically revamped the form. And the first thing, so if you look there at your screen, you can see the name of the system is provided by Water Rights pre-fills in most of this information, and then the systems go and put in the water use. They have all of their sources listed, and then they have to put in the monthly amounts that came off of each of those sources. So the first thing we did is we looked at the form and were told by many of the systems who were represented on the subcommittee that the form font needed to be changed. It's hard to read. It's hard to understand what we're asking for. So we revamped the form, and it now looks, the source information looks more like this, much more easy to read. It, again, Water Rights pre-fills in the source names, the locations, the water right numbers, and then the system has to just go in and go to their master meters of each of their sources and fill in this monthly data. There's a comment section because many systems complain that so this form is available on paper, mailed out, as well as online. About 40% of the systems now fill it out online, and about 60 fill it out still on paper. And many of the online people complain that there wasn't a place to comment. Sometimes they don't, a source is metered maybe 3 sources are metered together, and there was no way to tell water rights that. So we added this comment section. Wholesale deliveries, there are many systems that wholesale to other systems. There's a section now specifically for that. Again, this form here that you're looking at is a blank form when, if you are a wholesaler and water rights never knew about it, you're supposed to call Division of Water Rights, and that data will be submitted at that time. On wholesalers that water rights knows they're a wholesaler, this is already all pre-filled out. How much water did you deliver to each of your agencies? And then you just have to fill out the amounts. This is what the form looked like on the customer use side. This is what it looks like today. So again, here's where we want, and this is really valuable for water resources and our planning purposes. Here's where we want data at the customer level by the different categories. There's 4 categories: residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial use. And they don't need to fill it out monthly, just annual data that went to each of those types of customers and the number of connections of each of those. And then finally, the last part of the form is the secondary use. There's a series of questions, whether you are the entity that's actually delivering the secondary use within your system. Then there's only like 3 or 4. Well, there's about 5 or 10 of those systems, and we used to have where they would fill out the data, their meter readings, but now they just contact me, and I collect that data and enter it into our database. Most of the time, most of the systems have separate irrigation companies or separate secondary companies that deliver the water, and so we want just the names of those systems and a contact phone number, and we contact those systems individually. Finally, I just want to reiterate that the reason for this program and the reason that we take it seriously, that we need accurate data, is we have this goal to conserve water per capita use, to reduce the per capita use by at least 25% by the year 2025. We can't achieve this if we don't have accurate data. And so that's why it's so important to us. This is a chart.
Hey, Eric, maybe before you go on, just remind the board that, Senate Bill 80, which provided some new funding over the next several years to the WIRA account, had a companion bill of Senate Bill 251. And part of 251 was also to spend $1 million of the $5 million that was put in last year on additional studies. And one of those, or well, actually 2 of them deals with this program, and that was to have an independent look at this data collection and the numbers, as well as setting some new water conservation goals, some regional water conservation goals throughout the state. So part of what we're doing there fits hand in glove with this. And then, of course, there's the other 2 items in that bill, the large items, a third-party look at the financing of a water project as well as the construction. So anyway, sorry, just additional information.
Thanks. And so finally, this is a chart that we keep track of the water use every 5 years when we do this major analysis of the water use data. And you can see that the per capita water use is dropping. The 25% is that 220 gallons per capita per day out there by 2025. So far, the preliminary data that's coming in this year for the 2015 data collection looks like we may be very close to achieving this goal about 10 years earlier than originally planned for. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got, in my section, we have 5 people right now working on this, along with water rights, the Rural Water Users Association, as well as all of the major water conservancy districts. We're all combining to try to collect this data and to get the best possible data. As again, 20% has not submitted by June 1st. So that's our first plan of attack, is to go get those systems. To give you an idea, so in my section, I've divvied up between us 5. I have 3 basins. So my first basin is Virgin Canab, Chairman's area. So I go into Washington County, 37 water systems that received the form. As of 2 weeks ago, 5 systems had submitted the data correctly. 19 hadn't submitted at all, including Washington County Water Conservancy District and St. George City. And 13 needed to be called and ask additional questions. I went down there for a week, and out of the 19 that hadn't submitted, now 11 have submitted as of today, and we're working with the other 8 to try to get, now it's down to the smaller systems, Pine Valley irrigation companies of the world. Those smaller systems are the ones that haven't submitted, and I'm working with getting the 13 that I've been calling, trying to get little things that they hadn't submitted correctly. So it gives you an idea. It's a lot of work. We're trying to get this done by September 1st, all 450 systems. But anyway, that's my report.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any questions?
Director, we'll turn the time over to you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate Eric's report and the significant work that he and his staff are doing trying to get these numbers cranked out this fall, going to an annual accounting of the numbers rather than every 5 years is going to be a very beneficial and valuable thing to us, but it's going to be an awful lot of work, and so appreciate his efforts to do that. Building a little bit on what he said, and Todd brought up Senate Bill 80 and Senate Bill 251. Through this summer, we're going to be working with the State Water Development Commission, with the Governor's Office and others to develop rules for several things, including establishing criteria for better water data and data reporting, the new water conservation targets, as Todd had brought up, but also for large projects that would be funded from the Water Infrastructure Restricted Account, so the Lake Powell pipelines, the Bear River developments, those sorts of things. Rules for independent review of the construction plan for those projects, as well as the applicant's ability to repay the loan. These are things that I think will help provide information that the Governor's Office, that the legislature, that the public are asking for, and so we'll be working with the State Water Development Commission principally on that. This next week we're going to have a meeting with Senator Dayton, who is one of the chairs of the State Water Development Commission, to start into this process of how we're going to work on this summer. Chairman Lemon will be joining us for that meeting, and we look forward to moving through these processes and addressing the issues that were raised in the audit and the recommendations that were given, and try to figure out how to make these numbers and this information, which we think is already good, better. And you saw Eric's presentation on how we're trying to get in contact with the local suppliers to make sure that our forms are as clear as possible, that our need for the data is as clear as possible, so that they will get that data to us, seeing that it would be of value not only to the state of Utah, but also to themselves as they plan their projects for the future. So that'll be a major effort going on through this summer. The other thing that I just wanted to talk about briefly was the water supply, and how, again, this year, we had a better snowpack this year generally over the state than we did the prior year, but it still wasn't, as good as we'd liked. It's kind of sad when we talk about just wanting to get to normal, not even talking about exceptionally good years, but this year the rains in May helped out significantly. Just on the Colorado River system, Galen and I were talking yesterday. He's telling me that they're releasing more from Flaming Gorge than they had planned to do. Lake Powell has come up significantly. It's already exceeded the most probable projection that they had for its elevation for this year. And it looks like last year, with the rains that we got in May, that it will be tracking on the high side of their projections again. And so Powell is at roughly 3518 today, 3520. I'm saying that completely wrong. 3618. So it is 3,618 feet above sea level is where we are about right now. 3614 was the probable projection. 3622 is the maximum. And so if it keeps trending up like it has, I think we'll hit that maximum again, which will be good. Lake Mead, on the other hand, continues to fall. The lower basin states are working on drought contingency plans. We keep telling them we'd like them to fix the structural deficit. They say we're working on that is part of this also. And so we're encouraging them. We're, of course, working on things as the upper basin ourselves, and see that if we can work with the upper basin and the lower basin together, that we get some combined synergistic effects there. So not a perfect water year, but things aren't awful. We keep hoping for rain. We understand there's people out there that aren't hoping for rain, but you know, for the most part, we're going to continue to do that. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you, Director Millis. Joel, I think you have a short report for us.
This project originally came in as an application in 2009, and then it took them several years to get things ready. As you can see here, their proposal, I can probably use a mouse here to show you. What I'm pointing at right now is Adams Reservoir, where their project starts at the outlet of Adams Reservoir, a large piping project with the goal of carrying pressurized irrigation water to the west side of I-15 in Layton. The portion shown in green on this map is the portion that they were requesting funding from the board for. They came to the board, got the funding, then ran into some hang-ups with the crew that was doing the I-15 reconstruction, requiring them to use a certain contractor, and they felt like they were getting held over a barrel, so they decided to wait until after that and do the project on their own and bore under the freeway. So they did that and ended up, I'll show you these plans and then we'll show you what the costs ended up at. But this is where they would cross the railroad with a casing. The pipe was all 20-inch HDPE. This is where they crossed under I-15. You can see in some of these crossings they were able to use existing abandoned culverts and then backfill that annular space with sand and cap the ends with concrete, always using a metal casing pipe to run their HDPE pipe through. Another look at the I-15 crossing profile. In all, it was under a mile of pipe, but given the technical aspects of it, the total project cost did end up being $1 million, with the board funding 83% of that. One interesting thing the company decided to do early on was purchase their own pipe fusing machine. With as much piping as they knew they were going to be doing to pressurize their system and the lengths that they made that decision, and the company president is really big on it. He loves working with HDPE pipe. And as you see some of these photos, the nice thing about it, you can fuse several lengths of it together at once, open up a section of trench, flop the pipe down in it. Fairly easy to work with once you get the fusing technique down. And they've really loved it. There you can see them picking up the fusing machine to lower it down into a trench to some of their more technical locations. Here it is near a crossing where they're fusing some fittings on to make a bend. This is the auger system that was used to do the boring under the railroad, I believe, in this case. Oh no, this would have been the I-15. So there you can see they've got their trench box in place, and at this point they're ready to start working the pipe through. It's coming out the other side. This is near the Main Street crossing. Here they were able to use that abandoned culvert as a passage, so they didn't have to bore under Main Street. They just had to feed the pipe through. A mix of working through residential and commercial to get their system in, but they were able to do it. There you can see kind of a long stretch, just folded it and folds nicely into a trench, kind of wherever the trench needs to go. They're doing the boring under the railroad. The pipe through. Had to go underneath the Union Pacific and the UTA front runner tracks. So you can see the Layton station sign up there. Here it comes out on the east side of the tracks, and then connects to the crossing up ahead, Main Street. So it wasn't necessarily done from one end to the other. They kind of did pieces and then connected it all together. But here they are connecting that section that crossed under the railroad to the section that went under Main Street. And they've got it all in and functional now. I think you recall a few board meetings ago, I think it was August or December of last year, they came asking to restructure their payments just a little bit, because in getting the new system running and tying it into older sections, they had to replace a few other sections of the system that they hadn't anticipated, and a few other expenses they ran into. But other than those hang-ups, they're happy with the system that they've got, and it accomplished their goal of getting that pressurized water onto the west side of I-15 there. Near the end of the board-funded section, Flint Street. Questions from the board?
What was the largest?
It was all 20-inch. That whole length that we saw there, and I think that was sufficient to meet the water they needed to serve, and so they went with 20-inch that whole length.
When these folks buy their own fusing machine like that, is there any certification or any standards?
They did have some training. I don't know about if they had anybody, if there is a certification, or if they had to go to that length, but they did go out on some other projects that were being done, learned how to do it. You learn to watch your temperature gauge really carefully. And then document each joint, you know, what the temperatures were, what the pressure was that you fused it at, and then a lot of times they'll just keep a record of each numbered joint, you know, that they can look back on and say, yep, they know what the temperature and pressure was at each joint that they fused. But it's got a pretty good track record. You do have to know what you're doing. You know, you wouldn't want a company that thought, oh, we'll just get our own and willy-nilly do it. You got to know what you're doing. But they've really
thought that was the best decision, and they actually recommend that to other systems. So I thought that's one benefit to you seeing this project, as you work with other companies that maybe you're in a similar situation. That might be something you could recommend to them. They love the HDPE, how easy it is to work with, and then for them it ended up being economically feasible for them to use their own fusing machine.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Motions?
Move we adjourn. I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. We adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Any opposed? Stay here.